November 14th, the 5th Waking Up class. Well, good afternoon. I thought I knew Wednesday night what this class was going to be about, and since then it's changed about 3 times, so we'll discover what it's about. I think this is probably the last class in this series, and then we'll break for the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and start again in January if there's interest in doing that. So maybe this class is sort of a summary and maybe moving a little bit forward. The most important thing that I hope people get out of this class and learn to understand is that it all starts inside and flows outward. I've said before, the fundamental principle of the infinite way is that our experience is an outpicturing of our state of consciousness. And if people can really ever get that, if you ever really understand what that means, the whole thing clears up. What it's saying is that everything we see and everything that we experience, the whole world, space, time, people, everything is a reflection, like a mirror. It's a reflection of our beliefs. First of all, everything that we experience is clearly within our consciousness, and we can't possibly experience anything that we are not conscious of. And we can only experience those things which we are conscious of, and we can only experience those things which we can conceive of. Even if something is right in our face that we can't conceive of, we won't see it. I've had that experience so many times. People telling me things that I don't get. Experiences, it's just that what we call space, this 3D thing around us, is really mind, is really our consciousness. And what it's populated with is what we believe and can conceive of. And it's not necessarily an active thing. For most people, this whole process is a very passive thing. Most people have no, Joel would use the word dominion, most people have no dominion, no control over the content of their consciousness. And so they see whatever happens to be in their consciousness. We're all born into this apparent life, into this apparent state of humanness. And with the fact of coming into human consciousness, we undertake a life of limitation. The human life is a life of limitation. We're conditioned by active things in our life, like our parents, our peers, the books we read, the television shows we see, the movies we see, commercials on television are very actively out to condition us. It's been proven endless number of times that if you tell somebody something long enough, they'll believe it. If you tell yourself something long enough, you'll believe it. This is the process of conditioning. There have been amazing cases of conditioning in world history, political conditioning of entire countries. And it goes on in a much quieter and much more surreptitious way. It's like the old concept that Joel likes to bring up of subliminal advertising. They demonstrated years ago that if you, at a movie theater, there's 32 frames of movie per second that come up on the screen, and we see it as a continuous action. We're not aware of the 32 different pictures. And if one of those pictures says, "Buy Coca-Cola," it'll never register in your consciousness. You'll never see it. You'll see the other 31 pictures out of the 32 every second, and you'll never be consciously aware of that "Buy Coca-Cola" frame. But they tried that, and Coca-Cola sales went up like 85% because it was coming into your mind. You were getting the message: buy Coca-Cola, buy popcorn, and the sales went way up. And this is what's meant by subliminal. Well, we are all not only being consciously conditioned by churches and teachings and schools and television and books and everything, and peers and the groups we hang out and everything, but we're being subliminally conditioned just by the content of human consciousness. This one mind, this one consciousness that we're in, is one consciousness. It's not that I have a mind and you have a mind. It's that there is the mind, and we're all looking into it. And if we're not taking charge of what we believe, let's not use the word conscious of, let's use what we believe, then we're hearing the 5 billion. There are 5 billion human beings out there who are broadcasting, who are sharing our consciousness, and they are radiating their belief in survival of the fittest and good and bad and laws and limitations and disease and lack, want, ill health, disharmony, on and on and on. All of this stuff is the belief, is the human condition. The human state is a state of limitation, and what we see in our world is a reflection of our belief in our limitations, in the limitedness of human beings. We all believe that we have a body that is susceptible to disease. We all believe that the stock market could crash and wipe out our savings. We all believe we could lose a job and be destitute. We all believe all these conditioned beliefs because that's what humanity believes. Unless we know better, unless we learn better through a truth teaching. The nature of being human is limitation. That's what we're doing. That's what this whole human game is about experiencing those limitations in our consciousness. This somehow ties in, and I don't have any clarity on this as far as trying to make it a sequential thought process, but I keep getting that this is all about knowing what God is by knowing what God isn't. And the human experience is the experience in which we have the experience of what God isn't, so that we can have the experience of what God is when we're fully realized and know who we really are. And what God isn't is limited in any way. There are no limitations on God. God is absolute infinite consciousness, and it's uncharacterizable, it's unlimitable, it is whatever it is. And the human experience is the experience of discovering what God isn't, as well as what God is, so the human experience is necessarily one of limitation. And the process goes on, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, as we overcome these lies about limitations. We thought, that we were alcoholic. Most of us here, everybody here, I think. We thought we were alcoholic. We thought we were limited by our ability, by the power of alcohol to, we were unable to stop drinking. And when we got desperate enough to overcome our fear of trying a world without alcohol, we went to Alcoholics Anonymous. We went into a consciousness that was different from the one we had, a consciousness which knew that it was possible to not drink today. And that if we did not drink today, the possibilities were unlimited, and that we could grow and develop, and life would be better and such like. And all we really did was move out of, in my case, the consciousness of my ship and the schooner and Dietrich's, where I firmly believed that I would be more unhappy not drinking, because I knew that people that drank were just so square that it was absolute misery, and I firmly believed that I was happier drinking. And I went one night into a room where people believed that a good life was based on not drinking, and where they knew that it was possible to not drink for one day. And that was transforming for me. I came into that room one night and I haven't drunk since. It's transforming for a lot of people. The reason AA works is that there's a consciousness in AA that says you don't need to drink today. And the reason it stops working when we stop going to meetings is that we withdraw ourselves from that consciousness. And for most of us, AA is the most spiritual consciousness that we're exposed to, and so we withdraw ourselves from spiritual consciousness. So AA is really just a truth teaching which eliminated one of the limitations that we had taken upon ourselves in this lifetime. We have lots of other limitations, all of our sicknesses, all of our addictions, all of our limitations are human limitations that we're putting upon ourselves. None of them are real. The truth is that there is one consciousness, which we call God. And that consciousness is expressing itself as individual consciousnesses, our consciousnesses, the consciousness that we're all experiencing right now. If all of you think I am, that consciousness, the consciousness of I am, is God consciousness, not your consciousness. That is God consciousness. That is God expressing itself as individual consciousness. I mean, God's consciousness is our consciousness. And God is truly those things which we hear about God in all the churches, but none of them ever believe it. God is truly omniscient, and omnipotent, and omnipresent. And God is perfectly harmonious and eternal. And God is love. And so that is our true nature. And this idea of Lee is the particular selection of limitations that I've put upon myself in this lifetime to work through. And it's all concept. Lee is just a concept that is in this consciousness, this expression of God, this I am that I am, this I am that you are as well, but this I am that this time has a personality named Lee, that last time may have had a personality named Martha. Who knows what my previous life was or what my next one might be, The consciousness that I am, the impersonal, individualized consciousness that God is expressing itself as, is the one that's going lifetime after lifetime after lifetime and going through limitation after limitation and seeing through them all one by one. Susan, my sponsor, used to say that what we do is we try to make everything God that we can think of. We try to make alcohol our God. We're trying. The purpose of God is to relieve our pain, right? So we go through the list of trying everything we can think of to relieve pain, and that's, we want to be happy, really. Relieving pain is a bit harsh, but the human purpose of God is to relieve our pain, to make us comfortable, and so we go through alcohol and we try that until it doesn't work. We don't try it and say, oh, well, this isn't working. We try it until it stops working, and then we try drugs until they stop working, and we try money until it stops working, and we try power until it stops working, and we try sex or food or gambling or whatever until it stops working. And one by one we're discovering all those things which aren't God. And sure enough, anything that is not God will not work. It will fail. So eventually we'll discover that that's not God. And in the same way, we are trying all of our limitations. We are trying on all these limitations, and discovering and eventually learning that we don't need to limit ourselves in these ways. We're finding ways out of our limitations through truth teachings. Most people are not consciously on the path, so most people are not consciously attending truth teachings and hearing truth, and so most people are not consciously making progress, but they are making progress in any event. They are learning things that are not God, and they are brought to the point where God after God after God after God concept will fail them until they eventually are, surrender to the point where they have to find something else, and they will come to a teaching that is true. It is the process of truth teaching that lifts us out of our limitations. The limitations are all in our own concepts, and teachings of truth lift us out of these concepts. The truer the teaching, the sooner it will work, or the more efficacious it will be. And the more diligent the seeker, the more diligent we are in studying truth, the more efficacious it will be, the sooner it will work. And one by one we will eliminate our limitations. And this whole process is one of discovering that all of our limitations are in our mind. That's the reason that I've told so many of you that the things to do are, listen to tapes, read the books, find tapes and books that are written and recorded by masters, by people who know the truth, and listen to the tapes and read the books. And go to classes where there's a community consciousness so that you're in the consciousness of truth, and go to the classes or hang around people who are higher than you or further than you on the path, because this is a lifting process. And slowly, slowly, we discover more truth, and slowly, slowly the limitations drop away. And this is what this process is all about for people who are at the stage that we're at. And all of us are at this stage because we've done a lot of work in previous lifetimes. I mean, the percent of people who are consciously on the path is very, very small, and the reason that we're here is because we've done a lot of work and have prepared ourselves to where we can hear these kinds of truths. Give me a second. I was about to say that well, I will say a little bit about it, but I'll tell you what came through. One of the ways to get out of the sense of limitation is by doing the reading and doing the work and through meditating and lifting yourself until you get high enough that you can have some insight or some intuition or hear some truth. Another way is to go to a practitioner, go to somebody who has a higher consciousness and ask them to lift you out of the concept that's currently causing you a problem. This is the basis of spiritual healing in physical disease areas and in financial areas and in employment and in anything. Joel was a great healer, and what Joel would do was realize truth. Joel always knew the truth, and people who aligned their consciousness with Joel suddenly found themselves lifted above the belief in the limitation. And when they were lifted above the belief in the limitation was not there. And this looks to us like a healing. But what it really is a realization that it isn't there. What I just got is that this is not the last class, that we will do a workshop on healing for people that are interested in specifically practicing healing, not hearing about it, but who want to practice spiritual healing, who want to talk about spiritual healing and practice it, we'll do a workshop on that. And we can do it either next Thursday or on the fourth Thursday. At the end of the class, we'll talk about that and see which is preference, because the fourth Thursday is the fourth Sunday, is just after Thanksgiving, so we'll see who's available for what. But in any event, these are the processes for lifting ourselves out of these beliefs and limitation. So one thing that I hope this class opens up for you is the possibility that what I've just been talking about is true. And I don't ask you to believe me. You have to play with this and discover it on your own experience and find out whether it's true or not. But hopefully you'll take into mind the teaching that I've been giving us and that I've been being given, and explore the possibility that this is all an outpicturing of our own belief in good and evil, in right and wrong, good and bad. Some of the ramifications of the fact that everything is an outpicturing of our consciousness, the most brutal ramification is that you can't get anything from out there because it's a reflection. There's no source out there. There's nothing out there. You can't go out there for love or money or reassurance or companionship or any of those things. You can appear to find it periodically to the extent that it exists within your consciousness. And if you're not in charge of your own consciousness, then to the extent that it is within human consciousness, because human consciousness certainly believes that there's love, human love, and that there's companionship, but it's all on human terms and it never works, it always fails. The alternative is to recognize, to work on the assumption that your reality really is oneness with this infinite consciousness. And if this is the case, then what we do to gain these things is not acquire them, but express them. Because if in fact God is my consciousness, and if in fact God is infinite, and God is love, and God is harmony, and God is omniscience, then by going within, I can find infinite love, infinite wisdom, knowledge, infinite harmony, infinite all these things. And the way I do that is by expressing it. We all have some practical experience in that. But let me say a couple of things first. First of all, if you want more, what this implies is that if you want more love in your life, love more. Love more people. If you want companionship in your life, become a companion. If you want more money in your life, spend more. Dangerous one for the people who are working on their budget control, but nonetheless, if you want more supply in your life, express more, give more away. And it's not spending for your own personal gain that is the trigger we're talking about, but it's, don't cling to it. Recognize your oneness with everything and realize that if I withhold a payment from you, I'm withholding it from myself because of the oneness of everything. And if I withhold it from myself, it will be reflected, and sure enough, money that's owed me will be withheld. If I'm withholding love from somebody, love will be withheld from me because I'm withholding it from myself at the real level, not the superficial individual level, but at the real level. There really is only one. God is expressing itself as my individual impersonal consciousness and as your individual impersonal consciousness. So when I withhold from you, I'm withholding from me. When I give to you, I'm giving to me. And these are wonderful experiments that you can try out there in the real world to the extent that you can bring yourself to try it. I mean, try tithing at the 1% level. Try companionship at the cat level. Try, which is where I started. Really try. I did when I got sober. I lived in a half a garage, and I was very damaged. And when I was about 4 or 5 months sober, I got a plant. Decided I needed to share my life, so I got a plant. And a couple of months later, I got a little kitty cat. And, it was the best I could do, and, it just kept going from there. But, I started where I could start. But I did bring something into my life, and become a companion to a cat, and take care of a plant, and that grew. If you're drawing from within and expressing it, then the substance is spiritual. And the nature of spiritual substance is it multiplies. If you're drawing from without, the nature of stuff is material. And the nature of material things is it subtracts. If I get something from out there, I get it from you. I get it and you don't have it. And of course, on the reflex, I don't have it either. Spiritual things multiply. And we can see, well, a great example of it is love is a spiritual thing. And if you look at a mother with a child, the child has all her love. And then she has a second child. And they don't each get loved half as much. They each get all her love. And along comes the third child. And they each get all her love. She doesn't divide it and love them all a third as much. This is true, if I'm completely honest, it doesn't in any way impact your ability to be completely honest. I did not, by being completely honest, use up all the honesty in the world. Things which are spiritual, things which are of consciousness, things which are of God multiply. And the thing we don't get is that what we call supply, when we think of supply, we always think of money. And am I saying that money multiplies? Well, money isn't supply. The supply is God's grace. Supply is the abundant nature of God, and money is the outpicturing of it. And it multiplies in the sense that the money I get will not be at the expense of your getting money. I'll have an idea, a new product will come about that brings in money, or a new skill will come about which brings in money, or new art will be created which brings in new money, or new writing will happen which brings in money, or, the money will be the result of an addition to the world. The example of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with the 2 loaves of bread and 3 fish or whatever it was he had is the classic physical material example of that kind of consciousness. And Joel had that kind of consciousness as well. That is a perfectly reasonable thing for any of us to do when we've attained the consciousness. It's not that Jesus could do that. It's not that Joel could heal. It's that all of us, when we have realized that part of the consciousness which we currently are, then that will be one of the truths about us as well. Let's be quiet a minute. I think that's everything, so let's let this soak in for a minute. Be still and know that God is here and only God is here. Peace, be still. And know that I am God. I, the I of you, the I of me, the I of everyone. I am God and I am here. And I am all that is here. This I that I am, the I of all of us. Whenever I say I, I'm not talking about Lee, I'm talking about the I that I am and that you are. This I that I am is the only reality. God is the creator and the substance of everything. And this I that I am is the only reality of everything. I am the Christ consciousness. I am the Buddha mind. I am one with my Father, and it is the one. Not the I, little I, but the big I. Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. The Father, He does the works. Jesus also said, and one of my favorites is, when I speak of myself, I bear reference to a lie. That's about as clearly as you can say there is no such thing as me, myself there. He was talking about the physical Jesus. When I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. Always remember, when we know that I and my Father are one, always add, and it is the one, He is the one. It's very important to start with God. It's not that I am God, it's that God is expressed as me, as you. And God is the one. And everything which is not reflective of the nature of God is reflective of the nature of human consciousness. If it's not infinite and infinitely harmonious and timeless and blissful joyful, unblemished, then it's a lie. Then it's human belief in good and evil. Are there any questions or any comments or any insights or any wisdom? I know a lot of you have been doing the work and have been having some realizations, and it's time now to do anything you want to do. Yes?
It's interesting how, words can get in the way, and my mind always looks to the, the literal. Earlier you were talking about us learning about what God is not. And then as we moved along, because I was thinking when you were talking about how to learn what God is not, I've learned that God is, or I can feel that God is in everything. Everything. There is nothing, nowhere that God is not, which is an absolutely wonderful place to be in, as opposed to,
Yeah, what God is not is false concepts. Is false concepts. But if you have a blue wall and you hang a blue picture on that wall, you will not see the picture. You cannot see. If the entire universe was blue, you would have no concept of blue. You would have no idea of what blue was. You can't possibly know what blue is unless you know what blue isn't. The reason we write on blackboards with white chalk is that black chalk doesn't work. The reason we write on whiteboards with colored pens is that white pens don't work. You can't know what something is without knowing what it isn't. And my intuition is that that's what this game is all about, is that how can God know God without knowing not God? And of course there is nothing that is not God, nothing that's real that's not God. Hence the Leelaa, hence the fantasy, which is just full of not God. It's a great game.
When you said asked to be lifted like out of consciousness, is that to be lifted out of the consciousness of the lie?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have accepted the belief in some limitation, like the flu, if you've accepted the belief in flu, that you have the flu, then the chances are quite good that you will not be able to lift yourself out of the belief that you have the flu. Here you are with running a fever of 101 and feeling really miserable, and it's going to be very difficult for you to sit there and tell yourself that this is all nonsense, that this is just an outpicturing of my consciousness. Now, it would not be nearly as difficult for you to have that realization about my flu. If I'm telling you that I have the flu and you're fine, it's very reasonable for you to sit there and say, That's just an outpicturing of human consciousness. He's just bought the belief in human consciousness. He's swallowed the lie. Now, if I have asked you for a healing, if I've turned my consciousness over to you, so to speak, and you know the truth, I can be lifted by that. Whereas I could not lift myself, you can lift me because you're not invested in it, in my flu. So that's what it's all about. What it's about is, and we do that in AA, if you want a drink, if you want to have a drink, call somebody. Because if you're in your head and you want to have a drink, you're not going to lift yourself out of it. Call somebody, talk to somebody, or call a newcomer, But what we're talking about is going outside of yourself to get lifted out of it. And so what I'm talking about is being lifted out of the lie by someone who can know it's a lie.
So the drink or the flu is the lie?
Is the lie.
Okay.
The powerlessness over the drink is the lie. The idea that you're powerless over the drink. It's not a lie for you in that moment, but for somebody else, you call somebody else and they know perfectly well that you cannot drink today. And if you do so, you'll be better. And so you get pulled out of it by somebody who's not invested in it. And the flu is the same way. I'm talking to somebody who does some spiritual healing. And this person was in a professional situation where everybody was given free flu shots. And so this person took a flu shot. Figuring, oh, well, there it is. Here's a flu shot. I'll take a flu shot, And in taking a flu shot comes the belief that there's a flu shot that has the power to prevent flu, and therefore here's the belief that flu exists and has power, and there was the buy of the whole lie. And guess what? Flu. And by calling someone else, you can be lifted out of that. But like I say, we'll do a workshop on healing. It's not going to be a talk like this. We're just going to sit down and just have a discussion and an open workshop on that, because healing is something that it's a concrete example. I mean, we can talk about supply work, and there's no difference between healing and supply work. You can do supply work, you can do healing work, you can do employment work, you can do all this stuff. It's all the same. But depending on your investment in the lie or the investment of your society in the lie, they have relative difficulty for us to master, and we have to master each one individually. And my experience is that in working with spiritual healing, I have, in doing the work of trying to lift myself into a place where I can do spiritual healing on myself or help other people, it's been a great deal of muscle building, and this for me is a long process. Developing a healing consciousness is a long, hard process. It's much harder than supply. Supply was a piece of cake for me. I just knock out supply, and I can talk to you about supply, and healing has been much harder for me. I suspect it's because whenever I'm confronted with the request for help, I want to help. I want to help the person. And right there, I bought that there's something that needs help. I just bought the whole thing. And so now I got to extract myself from that molasses. So in any event, what I'm finding is that doing this work, actively trying to develop a practice in spiritual healing, has been a real lifting thing for me, not for anybody else. Spiritual healing doesn't do anything for anybody. Nobody needs spiritual healing. Nobody needs it. There's nothing wrong with anyone. But it's good work to do personally to develop your own consciousness. And I think it's the hardest one. Joel said it's the easiest one. He hates to talk about supply because supply is so hard for people to get. He says healing is so easy. But of course, Joel was struck with a healing consciousness long before he had any idea about how to do it. He got zapped with a healing consciousness. So, everybody's experience is different. So, I think probably what we'll do is let this be the last waking up class, and then we'll do one or more workshops on healing, or healing of any form, healing of supply problems, healing of employment problems, healing of physical problems, healing of whatever, of all things. But I think that we need to just really talk down and dirty about the problems with healing and the work to do and what it's about, and it's very much like going to the gym. Grab those bars and start doing the work.
You said Joel was back with spiritual healing. Was that because he was ill?
Because what?
He was ill. He had an illness, and
He in fact had the physical story is that he had a cold and went to, this was during the time of Christian Science, and he went to a Christian Science practitioner, and the practitioner said, "I'm sorry, it's Saturday, I don't work on Saturday, I just meditate on Saturday." And Joel said, "Well, I'd really soon not carry this cold till Monday." And the guy said, "Okay, we'll sit down outside outside." And so he did. He sat down outside, and the guy meditated, and he meditated, and he had a real white light type enlightenment. And he says that most of his human attributes left him then. He stopped smoking, he stopped drinking, he stopped doing all the human stuff that he did. He just lifted right out of that, one of the guys type consciousness and everything. And then a day later, some lady stops him on the street and says, "Would you pray for me? I know if you'll pray for me, I'll be healed." And Joel, looks at this and thinks it's very strange, but he's told within to do so. What to do about this? I don't know what you want me to do. I don't have any. And he's starting into this dialogue with God about what he doesn't know how to do. And the lady taps him on the shoulder and says, "Thank you." And she's fine. Okay, so that's what I mean by getting struck with the ability to heal. He suddenly was a healer, and he had the realization that if he didn't learn the principles that underlied that he would lose it. And so the Great Deal of the Infinite Way, this was in 1929, and the book The Infinite Way was written in 1945, and that period was spent in a very active healing practice in which he developed the principles and learned what they were. And very interesting. Yeah.
I think I grasp what you say about if you want to drink or use, you call somebody, and even though I feel I can't not drink, someone else can look at it. If somebody has the flu, the guy takes a culture and looks under an electron microscope and sees virus. Is that because he wants to see the virus? Because he knows you have the flu? Is that his thing?
That's the human picture. That's the human picture. But the idea that the flu virus has any power to debilitate you, this individualization of God consciousness, is a blatant lie. It certainly is true that the flu virus can cause a 103 degree temperature in a physical body. But there aren't any physical bodies. That's your concept of yourself. So it's possible that the flu under the virus can have the effect on your concept of yourself, but it is impossible that the flu virus can have any effect on you, because the reality of you is that you are an individual expression of God consciousness. You are consciousness. And the flu virus is not going to have any effect on that. An example about that is, Joe, would you hit the lights, please? An example about that is that when you drive down into the desert, you come over a hill and you look at the road out across the desert, and it's wet. Now, if you knew nothing at all, you would stop. You would say, uh-oh, end of the line, the road's underwater, I don't have my pontoons, I'm dead in the water. And so you don't go forward, okay? So we get lifted out of that eventually, and we discover somebody comes along and says, no, that's not water, that's a mirage, and then there's all sorts of nice physical explanations about that and such like, and eventually you learn that although it looks like water, It's not. Okay? Now here's an example of something that looks exactly like water. You see it in the real physical world, and you would let it stop you if you believed in it. But the fact is that if you don't believe in it, it has no power. The interesting thing is that not only does that water on the road have no power to stop you in your car, it also doesn't make the road wet. The road did not get wet. Okay? The fact is that you're seeing the reflection of the sky, and the only explanation you know for a reflection of the sky is water. I mean, you're seeing light from the sky bent because of the heat and coming up into your eye, but the only explanation that you have for seeing sky looking down is reflection off of water. That's the common explanation. So you've bought a lie. Okay? Buying the power of flu is the same thing. It's a lie. But whether you buy it or not, whether you look down at the wet road and stop and go no further, i.e. you bought it, or you don't buy it, you go on, or whether you believe in the power of flu and catch it and lay up in bed for a week or not, you never had flu. The I that you are, the I that I am, is choiceless, effortless, pure awareness. It never had the flu. My concept of myself may well have appeared to have the flu. This is why I don't go to doctors. If I go to doctors, I'm going to become a statistic. You know, if I go to a doctor, then I've just signed up for being one of the 40% that gets flu and one of the 60% that gets this kind of cancer or that kind of cancer, or, you know, going into the consciousness is buying it.
I got a double hernia. I don't want to go fix it.
Nonsense.
There.
Nonsense. You see it, I believe that. But nonsense. You don't have a double hernia. You are impersonal God consciousness. You are not Ed. You are consciousness. You are an expression of God as consciousness. You are spirit. And you're a spiritual being thinking it's having a human experience. And the human experience may well have a double hernia. But you don't. It's as if I dream. You know, so I'm dreaming at night and I dream I have cancer. And the Lee in the dream has cancer. He's sick. He's got cancer, you know, and somebody comes up to me and says, you don't have cancer, you're dreaming. No, I don't. I've got, you know, and I'm into this cancer thing, you know, and I'm talking about it, you know, and I'm telling you that my mother died of cancer and my father died of cancer and it's hereditary and yada, yada, yada. And there's a bunch of it going around and all this stuff, you know. And I won't hear you talk me out of it, you know, and such like. And then I wake up. What happened to the cancer? What happened to the guy that had the cancer? This is no different, is what I've been trying to tell you. Here we are in the dream, and I'm telling you, no, you don't have a double hernia. And you're saying, yes, I do. And as long as you say it, then you appear to. This is, and you're not going to drop that, but you can be lifted out of it, or you can do the work, and slowly, slowly, as we do this work, we become clearer and clearer on this. You know, I don't think anybody can expect to be 100% disease-free while you're having a human experience, because there are 5 billion of them against us, stacked up against us, but you can expect not to partake in 80 or 90% of the stuff that goes around, and in the stuff that you do partake of to a much less extent than anybody else.
Thanks, you just gave. Yep. Thanks for the question. Because I've been, you know, since I've been doing this work, so surprised when I get something like a cold or, you know, like this arthritis that came up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, wait a minute here. You know? So
you can be lifted out of that.
Huh?
You can be lifted out of that, if you will.
I will.
It's a lie. It's not true. I had one case, I had a gal who came to me and said she had arthritis, And I, for some reason, this was a year or so ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and she said, she complained about the arthritis. And I said, do you really believe you have arthritis? And she looked at me and she said, I don't want to. And I said, fine. And this was at an AA meeting, actually, and she left the meeting without arthritis, and she hasn't had it in 2 years. Now, it was 95% because of her amazing willingness not to have it, and she was, needless to say, quite a high lady, but she hadn't bought the truth about the arthritis. She bought it in 100 other areas, but she's thinking flu is a spiritual malady and she's got arthritis. I don't know what her problem, where she was drawing the line, but the fact is, we have to deal with everyone. Some of the very high spiritual teachers have, occasionally come down with something. And the fact is that every lie and every remnant of a lie that is in your consciousness must externalize. That's the nature of the beast. So if you have a 10% belief in human affliction, then you will have 10% of the human afflictions. You must. Your consciousness outpictures. And if you outpicture arthritis, it means that you, at some level, believe that there's a power in arthritis. And it can be dealt with.
And 2 weeks ago I was at work and got like a stone shaving stuck in my eye, in my left eye. And that really appeared to be real. My eye was running all over the place, and it felt like there was a Volkswagen running around in my eye. And so the guy I was working with, he goes, yeah, I better take you in. And I tried washing it out, wouldn't come out. So we went to one place, and they said, yeah, you're going to have to wait like 2 hours. And I thought, hell with that. And went to another place, and they said the same thing. So finally we went down to this place off of Prospect. And went in, and I had to wait 2 hours anyway. And this thing was bothering me so bad, but I took all of the pain that I thought I was feeling into meditation. And the guy I was working with was just bugging the hell out of me and telling me, come on, we gotta hurry, and I can't be, he's kind of different type person. And so I just went by myself and sat in the corner and got quiet. And I didn't even know that it took 2 hours. And never felt any pain. And when the doctor finally saw me, he said he'd washed it out with some drops or got it out some way. And he told me it's really going to bother you and tried to give me some Vicodin or something. And I told him, no, I don't need any of that. And went home and just got quiet and went to sleep. And when I got up, my eye never bothered me again. And I went back to see him, and he said that he must have been looking at the wrong eye because there was no mark left or anything.
Sure.
Pretty wild.
That's what we're talking
blew me away.
That's what we're talking about.
And that 2 hours just seemed to disappear. Wow.
I have a question. We've been talking a lot about getting rid of your concepts, about other people, and you were talking tonight about the process of discovering the limitations, that are in our mind, and my awareness is heightened a lot. Like I was at this wedding, and the preacher was talking about all the personality things about these people getting married, and I'm going, Maya, 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 but those are all concepts. There's no truth to any of that. But then, I don't know what the next step after that is. And I got a little bit from hearing you talk about, then you're going to go to, well, what is the truth about them?
Yeah. I mean, why? I guess the first question is why were you doing any work on that at all? Because you will spend every waking moment chattering about everything that everybody says, because everything that everybody says is a concept. So you don't need to work on it unless it is if you are affected by it. You don't let other people impose their beliefs on you. If somebody comes into your consciousness and it has an impact on you. Like if they're homeless and you feel bad about them, or they're wealthy and you feel bad about them, or about yourself, or what have you, then you have some work to do. And if you have no reaction, then there's no work to do. I mean, people can tell me whatever they want to tell me, and if I have no reaction to it, then that's fine, because I don't need to specifically deny everything that's said. I mean, that's the appearance, and that's fine, and everybody has apparent characteristics.
Your mind can play with a limitless.
Sure.
A limitless, it could go on and on and on and on and on forever.
But if you're having a reaction,
You don't have to.
but if you're reacting to it,
Right.
then you have work to do. If you find yourself believing in disease or in health, there's work to be done. Because if you believe in health, then you're setting yourself up for disease. Joanne's relationship class, last time there was this great comment that this gal said, who was suddenly realized that she was looking at a fat person. And it suddenly occurred to her that if she saw a fat person, she was setting herself up for fat. She was available for fat, And that's how it is. If you see a fat person, then you're available for fat. And the point is, it's all about my reaction.
So if I react to a concept, then what do I do?
Know the truth. Tell yourself what the truth is. See the reaction. See it. It's just an honest statement of where you are. Accept where you are. That's fine. That's exactly where you are, and it's exactly where you're supposed to be. And remember the truth. And it's like going to the gym. I mean, this whole thing is a spiritual gymnasium. Go to the gym. Throw the truth at it, or it's like like I was saying earlier, treat it as a spiritual laboratory. Test the truth. Throw the truth at it. Know the truth. I find AA meetings are just a wonderful place to practice. Because there are lots of people in AA meetings that you could react to. One way, the morning meeting is my favorite, because we have the homeless people that come in every morning. And are you going to see homeless people, or are you going to see donut thieves, or what are you going to see? Are you going to see poor people? And if you react, then you have work. Then you have a concept, and you're available to that. If you see a donut thief, then you're setting yourself up to be stolen from. You're saying, I can be stolen from. You're saying there are people who have the power to steal. If you see God, fine. If you just, see the universe doing what it does, if you see the Leelaa, then there's no problem. If you see somebody, if you're at a theater, and you're watching a play, and in the play, somebody comes in dressed like a homeless person and wanders into an AA meeting in the play and grabs a donut in the play and sneaks back out in the play. You say, oh, there was an actor in the play that's acting like a donut thief. And that isn't, and you say, wow, she was a good actress. Okay? You don't say she was a bad person. You say she was a good actress. Well, when you see somebody walk in and have a donut in the morning, you don't question whether it's right for them to have a donut or not, or query whether they're really alcoholic or not, there's the next one. Is she really an alcoholic or not, or is she just trying to get the donut? The answer is no, she's not really an alcoholic, and no, she's not really not an alcoholic, she's really God, it's a good play, So see where you are. And I work on the ones where I get a reaction, when I think it should be different. then I immediately know I have work to do. If I think it should be different, if I think it's other than perfect, then I have a concept problem.
We went to the morning meeting in Santa Barbara this morning, and like 9 people shared, and nobody had over 3 months of sobriety. And I had a big reaction.
Good.
I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't get sober here. I wanted to go to the like Weller people and say, go find another meeting quick. I definitely thought it should be different.
Well, you may wind up secretary of all those meetings. Everybody's getting exactly what they need. Everybody's hearing the right teaching. Everybody's seeing the right lessons. If you want to know how things should be, take a look. Ricky can look at arthritis as I shouldn't have arthritis, or she can look at arthritis as a chance to learn about spiritual healing or who knows what. Or she can say, oh, that's interesting. 3 choices.
Although she can get help by being lifted,
If she chooses to go that way.
if she chooses, like Chuck's experience, he lifted himself into the consciousness of healing.
Chuck was cool enough to lift himself right out of it, which is
It hurt too bad, I had no choice.
which is quite unusual. Usually when it hurts that bad, you can't. You know. But fine, you know, and it's very interesting that if it's not in your mind, it's not, is it? I mean, somebody else was telling me about being in a high place for a minute, and then in a low place for a minute, and then in a high place, and then in a low place, you know, and it's like, which one is real? Both. You know, if this is in your mind, it's in your mind. If it's not in your mind, it's not in your mind, you know. And how can I say that I have pain which is not in my mind? You know, if I'm not conscious of the pain right now, then there is no pain, is there? Either I'm conscious of my pain or I'm not. If I'm not conscious of my pain, then I don't have pain, you know, regardless of whether my leg appears to be broken or my arm appears to be cut off, you know, if I'm not experiencing it, it's not happening.
What a wonderful solution to problems.
If you can do it or get help.
What problem?
I understand that, just what you just said, like in childbearing, because I just didn't have pain and I was in labor for like 36 hours, and after a while I just like had no more pain.
Cool.
Yeah, that was exactly what you just said.
There is
I didn't understand that till now.
no reason to have a debilitating experience except the acceptance of the belief in debilitating experiences. There is no reason to have anything negative except the acceptance in your consciousness that exists, that has power. Which is very interesting because all the Orthodox churches claim that God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. And so how can there possibly be a power other than God? If God is everywhere and the only power and all power, how can there possibly be a power other than God? So I mean, you know, even Orthodoxy acknowledges in their claims, which they of course immediately deny, but their definition of God assumes that there's no such power as flu. There's nothing left to have power. But the Orthodoxy doesn't believe it. They just say it. Anything else? Okay, let's be quiet for a couple of minutes.